Hey guys, so in this tutorial I'm going to go over how to make a Chroma effect. Um, and by that I mean you can choose a color and make it transparent. So you can see if I drag onto my skin will be transparent, ceiling, etc. So I'm using bright green just as a way to kind of debug this. But I can show you what it'll look like with an actual texture. So there's some space in the background. It's green space because of the green color, but do black. Pretty cool stuff. So that's the gist of it. So there's three main. Oops, I don't want camera texture. No texture. Okay, so there's three main components to this, and the first is you can see that there's a kind of a sampler. So it's just a circle that shows you what color is selected. It doesn't stick onto the color, it stays there. So if you move, it'll pick up whatever's in that area. So that's kind of an extra bit. I'll go over that in the second half of the video. I figure most people just want to know how to make stuff transparent. So I've already got all of the stuff set up. Oops. To do this, but we're gonna take it apart and then remake it. So I'm just gonna disconnect all this stuff, move it down, and then work backwards, or forwards, I guess. All right, so first of all, can't see anything now, so I'm just gonna plug this back in. There we go. So the first step, I guess, is to kind of get a grasp of what exactly needs to happen to be able to select a specific color and then make it transparent. So we get the color value from this input up here, which is the texture sampler. But you can just as easily use a static color value. I'm going to do that just to start. Value defaults as a number, so we're going to change that to color. Let's go with white just because I've got a lot of white in the scene. So the idea is you want to get your target color and then the actual color and see. So colors are just numbers, right? So you want to see like how far away from each other the colors are. And in math, you just do that with subtraction. So we are going to take a subtract node, type this color in here, and then what? It's been a while since I made this, so I got to kind of go through the steps of figuring it out again. Okay, so this is piped into a swizzle first. So generally, it's more efficient to work with RGB as opposed to RGBA. And when you do stuff like subtract, you end up not subtracting the alpha, because if you subtract two alphas that are 1, you end up with 0, and it's really confusing. So for this purpose, I'm just working with RGBA. Oh yeah, so okay, that's where we are. So it doesn't matter really what order you subtract these in. So this is the target color, and then we're going to get this other input from the camera texture RGB. So you subtract those two, and it's kind of hard to tell like what is exactly happening. So I do this quite often when I'm trying to figure out how to make something work. Sorry, this is kind of small, huh? All right, so swizzle. We're going to take the RGB and then just add a 1 to it just so we can have alpha and then plug it in. So this is kind of a cool effect on its own. It's reversed out. It doesn't really tell us much, but that's what we get when we subtract those two colors. So what do we want to do? Right, so there's an absolute node here, and that's just in case your subtraction ends up as a negative value, because you don't want a negative color. I actually don't know how much this matters, but just for the sake of being thorough, just make sure it's a positive color value. I don't think that's going to necessarily change anything. No, it didn't. Okay, so we've got the subtraction. This is just inverting it back. And then a smooth step, which kind of defines the ranges you want your color to be in. And here, we're just trying to get an alpha value. So this is just like averaging all of the RGB values. Yeah, divide by 3. And then for some reason I reverse it again. Kind of confused by that, but see what happens if we just skip that step. So absolute going into smooth step. So smooth step is selecting the color range that you want to target. So if you want to really fine tune this effect, this is where you would do that. So let's see what 0 to 1 does. And I think I had 0.7. So this is really clamping in those values. I'm going to go ahead and reconnect this color input just so we can have some flexibility. 0.9, yeah, that looks pretty good, pretty tight. If you want to get super tight, you can do like 0.85. That would give you really crisp edges. So this is kind of the reason I thought this would be a good tutorial, is because this is an effect that won't necessarily work out of the box for you. You gotta kind of know what's going on and know where to tweak these numbers. I'm gonna go back to 0.7, give it a little bit of a softer effect. So now that we have selected these colors, we can convert it into an alpha value. So we unpack the RGB and then we just add it all together. So R plus G plus B. And then to get the average, we divide by 3. And that's going to give us a single value. And I'm going to plug this in so you can see what it looks like along the way. I wish there was like a, I mean, I suppose I can make one, but a patch that did this, an average patch. This is a little tedious to add things together and divide them. Kind of a spaghetti thing going on here, but you get the idea. So those are all added and divide by 3. And I borked it. It's because yeah, this isn't going to work anymore. So we'll do, maybe we'll use that later. So this is going to be just black and white preview because it's a single value. Yeah. So I'm just going to do this to compare. So you can see there's like actual color in that version, and then we get the single value, which is going to be our alpha. It's just a grayscale. So now we need to apply this alpha mask to the main camera feed. So this value is going to be our alpha. So we're going to put that in a pack. I've demoed this quite a few times, but I'll do it again just because it's pretty time saving. So normally you would want to pack RGBA like that. So that's a vector 4, but Spark actually is smart enough to figure it out. You can pack just the A value, and then the top one will be RGB. I'm going to grab that from camera texture. And then we have to plug it in. Boom. So what's going on? All right, so we're okay. It's still white. Yeah, I'm actually going to go ahead and start using this sampled color again. I said I was, and the node graph broke. Okay. So you can actually plug this in, the value. Oops. Why is it doing this? Huh. A little confused about that. Oh, okay. Maybe the range is too high? Suppose this might be where these tractions came in. I'm sampling black right now. I don't have that much black in my room. So I apologize. I forget what these are actually doing. Yeah, so that seems okay. So yeah, that's way more correct, but you can see it's doing the exact opposite of what we want it to now. So we have to reverse that out again. I think we're done with that node. No. Why? Oh, because yeah, I'm not supposed to plug that in. So when you subtract 1 minus a color, it just inverts it. Pretty handy trick. Okay, so now we're back to where we started. So that's it for the actual Chromakey part. Sure you guys can make some cool stuff with this. The actual effect of like selecting a color is a little goofy. Maybe somebody will find a cool use case for it. Let me know if you do. So we can go over this like screen like color grabber just for fun. I'm not going to rebuild the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of explain how this graph works, and maybe reconnect some nodes to demo it. So SDFs are pretty cool, super handy. They can replace a lot of textures in some cases. So in this case, I just wanted a circle. And if I didn't have SDFs, I would have to make a circle texture, which adds bloat to your file. But anyway, SDF circle, you can tell it to mix into an alpha, which try plugging that in. I think it's a single value though. So swizzle. Oops. Okay, so yeah, there's a little bit of playing with it that you have to do. You can like mess with these numbers. So it's pretty blown out. I'm just gonna go ahead with what we were doing originally. The step is going to make it hard-edged. So you can do a smooth step if you want like a smooth, like blurred out circle. But in this case, we just want to straight up circle. And you can see it's like, it's reversed out. So we're going to do that same like color inversion trick with the subtraction. So that's it for the actual shape. Where it gets a little complicated is the actual behavior on the like the panning, just to get the cursor to line up. So with screen pan, you get this thing called 2D position, which is like it's the pixel value of where you're touching on the screen. But textures don't work like that. Their positional values go from like 0 to 1. So 0 being the left side and 1 being the right side. So you have to do a little bit of division to figure out what that is. And you can see this is only displaying the, I think it's the X component, but 0, oops, I had to zoom. You start at 0 and go to 1, and if it had the Y component in there, you would see same thing for Y. Then there's some weird stuff with the actual screen coordinates. So yeah, we take the screen size, divide it by 2. I'm trying to remember exactly what's going on here. Maybe just plugging it in. Yeah, okay, all right. Starting to get it. So if you just take the 2D position, I think you're gonna get some really crazy stuff. So we're gonna have to zoom out. So this is how I was like developing, and you can see like that's totally wrong. So this little dot over here is first of all, it's like it's going left to right, okay, but then like up and down is like reversed. So that's what this does. It takes just the straight X value and then inverts the Y. And then so it's in the top right too. So let's see what this subtraction does for us. Yeah, so the subtraction kind of gets it more in range. Then I don't know why, like for some reason the range for this is like double what it needs to be. So just cut that in half. I'm sure there's like logic behind why all of this is behaving this way, but generally you can start plugging things in and use your eyeballs to kind of make a guess at what should be happening, and then, I don't know, just keep plugging stuff in. Sage advice. But it works for me. So anyway, for the actual color selection, it looks like a lot of stuff is going on. Wait, no, that's not the color selection. So the color selection uses the screen position, but it's like way more straightforward because you just divide 2D position by the screen size, and that gives you the 0 to 1 box that you need, and you feed that into the UV of the texture sampler. And then, of course, we get this from camera. So yeah, screen position goes into the UV, and then you sample it, and that's your color, and that's it. So the actual texture sampling is pretty simple. So yeah, you can do a lot of really powerful stuff by changing the UV values. Like you can do warping, all kinds of cool stuff. But if you just need to select a color, as simple as giving it a 0 to 1 range and then a texture. I know that was pretty long-winded for a Chromakey effect, and a lot of you are just going to take this project and like plop it in. But key element here is just to play with this range and get you know, really specific with how you want your effect to behave. So you can even go from all the way from 0 and make it like super smooth. But if you're going for like a more graphical effect, you can do like 0.8. That appeared to do nothing, but strange. Oh, yeah, because we don't actually, this is my reference stuff. So I'm just going to clean this up for you, and then this is going to be up on GitHub. Repository is Posit Labs Spark Chromakey. There's going to be a link to the tutorial. So one more detail. This is made in version 69 beta on Mac. I decided to do it in this version because it's more aligned with how Windows works. So that's it. If you liked the video, please subscribe. I plan on making many more of these. You can follow me on Instagram at Posit Labs, and I will see you in the next one.